the CEO of the National Entrepreneurship and Innovation Program, NEIP, Kofi Nkansa Ofosu Nkansa, was on Wednesday arrested by the Office of the Special Prosecutor for allegedly taking money belonging to the state, that program, and distributing the money to delegates seeking to buy their votes in the NPP primaries as he laces his boots for the primaries there in Asante Akim. The OSP, will he succeed in seeking to fight election corruption, specifically vote buying? That is an issue we are canvassing for you. The government has paid some $10 million to the West African Gas Pipeline Company to cover part of the state's indebtedness to the company to avert a possible power crisis and a load shedding exercise. Some of you have been shouting Dumsor, but is that what it is? Is the problem solved? And Professor Stephen Adey is not happy that the state is slapping VAT on electricity for ordinary Ghanaians. What do you think of these? These are very popular names, people you can say some of Africa's greats. Professor Patrick L.O. Lumumba is a Kenyan lawyer and activist. Peter Obi, Nigerian politician and businessman, a man who caused a stir in the elections recently in Nigeria. Dr. Arikana Call, AU ambassador to the USA. They were here in Accra at a very central place, the Black Star Square, and they were embarrassed. Has Ghana equally suffered an embarrassment? Welcome to a very first edition of Newsfile for 2024. I'm Samson, Lardy, Anyenini. We'll be right back to deal with the vexed matters, and I invite your comments on all the issues. We will share them with the rest of the world. You're welcome to Newsfile. I'm Samson, Lardy, Anyenini, and here is Samson's Stake. You're worse than TB Joshua. I had the privilege of a private viewing session of the BBC Africa Eye latest documentary, Disciples. You can trust Anas Arameyaw Anas and his team to dig up the evidence that elude even state investigators with all the resources. I lost counts of the crimes and the egregious human rights abuses TB Joshua perpetrated against the victims and the countless gullible others in Jesus' name. It is difficult to discount the harrowing stories of the experience of hell itself by the former disciples. The plenty evidence of charlatanic advertisements, domestic violence in the nature of economic, verbal, emotional, sexual, physical, and psychological abuse, defiling girls and raping those women, the crimes and thoughts of assault, battery, threats of harm, and death, false imprisonment, barefaced fraud, money laundering, corruption, and even murder, mass murder in the illegal structure that collapsed and killed 116. These go on right here in Ghana. But we will rather tell the few people who will speak up against such to shut up and to not touch the anointed. We see so-called pastors violate the dignity of people by subjecting them to all sorts and chaining some like animals to trees. They starve them and feed them like dogs. The IGP cracks the whip on charlatanic prophets who hear God speak only on 31st December night and only about doom, and we insult him for attacking the church. Kids have watched unthinkable stuff by ritualists on TV and influenced to kill their friends for money. Corrupt politicians take advantage of you to insist on sinking millions of your money, borrowed money, into destroying expensive edifices and building a cathedral while your economy is plunged into historic crisis, because they know you are a bunch of foolish Christians, that you will fight those demanding openness and accountability. Churches are supposed to be trust entities. Do we know what that means? Yet, you are happy to belong to a no structures, unquestionable, untrained one man or woman in a fraudulent business in the name of God. Even Jesus gathered 12 men and was accountable to them. Be wise as the serpent and choose men who are diligent, present themselves approved to God as workers who do not need to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. That's the Apostle Paul's instruction to you who call yourselves a Christian. We should, like Kenya, demand minimum professional qualification for clerics. Without basic theological training in Kenya, you can't be a pastor. Like the UK Charity Commission, we should begin the barest regulation for order, structures, and financial accountability of pastors and their churches. And that is my take. We will be right back. I'll introduce my guest to you, and we get into the vexed matters for today. What do you think about the OSP seeking to go into election corruption? He wants to fight it. We are told that if you do not have, by evidence, by good research, by the CDD, that if you do not have $100 million, you cannot do a successful presidential election campaign in Ghana. Some of the politicians, including the majority leader, has said it's a bit less, about maybe $50 million or so. Where do they get that money? You cannot prosecute a successful parliamentary election campaign if you can't boast of at least some 4-5 million Ghana cedis. And that was 2 years ago. Today, I don't know how much it will cost. Because in the primaries, we are seeing how money is doled out. 2 presidential candidates only doled out in excess of almost 200 million Ghana cedis here in this country. And the parliamentary aspirants, we're seeing how they throw the money. Some throw it up in the air for their followers to pick. Do you think the OSP will succeed in this fight? Is Dumsor back? Government has paid some of the money it owes. And it says, be rest assured, no more power outages. But is that really the solution? What do you also think about Professor Stephen Adair saying that putting VAT on electricity, taxing the ordinary Ghanaian on electricity is wrong. The cancellation of the Africa Convention, whatever it is called, who was embarrassed? Ghana, or the speakers, or Freedom Jacob Caesar? Share your comments with us. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. So tweet at us. What do you think about the issues that we have raised? Let's have your views, and we'll share with the rest of the world. OSP fights election auction. Joining us this morning for this discussion, Professor Bafo Ajimandua, former United Nations Senior Governance Advisor, Kofi Bento, Senior Vice President Imani Africa, Andy Kwame Appiah-Kubi, Ranking Member, Subsidiary Legislation Committee. He's MP Asante Akim North. Sorry.
I'm not a member of that committee.
You're a member of the committee, a ranking member?
No.
Okay,
it's
just
changed.
A member?
It's changed. Now
Okay.
I'm only a member.
Okay, member of the Subsidiary Legislative Committee of Parliament. He's MP Asante Akim North. Alex Segwefia is Director, International Relations, National Democratic Congress. We will also be joined for a very brief chat by Kwame Anyenini, the MP for Asante Akim Central, who is alleged and accused as being the one who has reported his contender to the special prosecutor. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this morning on Newsfile.
Morning to you, morning to you.
Great, great. Right.
Samson.
Right.
Good morning to our cherished viewers.
So, as you may have followed the developments, on Wednesday, we woke up to news of the Chief Executive Officer of the National Entrepreneurship and Innovation Program, Kofi Ofosu-Nkansah, being arrested on Wednesday by the Office of Special Prosecutor ahead of the NPP's parliamentary primaries. He was arrested on charges of distributing money to delegates ahead of the primaries. He is suspected to be using the program's money to be funding his political campaign in the Asante Akim Central Constituency in the Ashanti region. And the reports have been that he was arrested following a complaint by the incumbent MP Kwame Anyenini. That is an allegation he denies, and we will share further about what we know on that particular allegation with you. The Asante Akim Central Constituency Secretary Felix Amache, however, insists that it is Mr. Anyenini who brought the alleged money-sharing incident to the attention of the special prosecutor. We tried to get him also to speak to us, but we have been unsuccessful so far. He has been granted bail by the OSP. He contested in 2020, but the incumbent, Kwame Anyenini, defeated him. He has filed to contest again, and there are allegations that he has started distributing money to the delegates ahead of the 27th elections. Let me begin with maybe the politicians in the studio before we go to our guys on Zoom. Yes, Alex, the OSP, I think we should look at it from the general perspective, even though we use this as, you know, the hook, so to speak.
It's steady.
Yes. When you started your primaries, there were people, one particular candidate who was splashing money in the air. The OSP went after that person. And we got into the NPP primaries as well, and people who were paying and showing monies that they had been paid. Some of them, the OSP has issued a wanted, warrant after them, so to speak. And now to this, some say the OSP cannot succeed in this direction because this is a fact. Our politics has been monetized and the votes are bought. He must arrest all the delegates arrest all the aspirants, he won't succeed. What do you say?
My first comments will put me in exactly what I say. I commend the OSP. I really commend him. Because we have a canker and it must stop somewhere. And the ability to stop it must also start somewhere. This idea that it is everywhere. If you're on the motorway and you are all traveling at 100 mph and they stop your car, it is never an excuse in court that they should have stopped all the cars traveling at 100 mph and therefore you cannot be prosecuted. No. So as far as I'm concerned, the OSP is well within his rights, first of all, to act on a complaint from someone. We are yet to clarify that issue. But once he has a complaint, then he is duty bound to investigate. And no matter what the outcome, and let me use this opportunity to tell the OSP that, look, he is a new body, the leader of a new body that is going to be very difficult for people to stomach. He's already in a difficult position because of the act that brought him into force and his limited powers, in inverted commas, due to the Attorney General actually having the power of. But he must show direction and he must go as far as he can go and not get too frustrated. Because the frustration will come. The moment you are going to deal with corruption regarding public officers, politicians, etc., there will be frustration because we have a protectionist policy in our political parties and more so in some than others, but we will leave that for now. Let's try and be as neutral as possible. And it becomes imperative that he does what he knows he can do within the law. Sometimes you get it wrong, sometimes it will be difficult, but he must keep going. Because once he lights the torch, we can then light other torches as we go along. We can amend our laws. We may have to do an amendment to the Constitution at some point, but at least there is a clear-cut vision, and he's the second OSP, let's be clear. The frustration didn't start today. So it is there and it's live. So I commend him. And if it is sharing of money, to say that others have been, no, there's a specific allegation and this is the way to go. What concerns me more is what effect does it really have, except for propaganda or mischief purposes in the actual election. What do I mean? Somebody throws this out and immediately the incumbent is seen as being behind it because he's afraid of competition. And any way you look at it, that is what will come out. So it will be interesting to find out who the real complainant is and what has gone behind it. But once that happens, you are going to then ask, once the election is over, because it doesn't stop the election. He's only been arrested. He's not even been charged with an offense. So it's not going to affect the outcome of the election. If the election is held and the person that has been charged wins the election, what position then are we in? He goes on with his investigation. He finds that this has occurred and then he's convicted. So we are looking at another re-election of the, the candidate for that constituency. If he's acquitted, he then has a gripe against the incumbent because he sees it as him actually dealing with this thing. And if he wins, the incumbent can also take a different view as to how he won the election. So it doesn't bode well for those that are in that position currently. And therefore, we have to look just beyond this. Because is it still going to go ahead? once the election is over, the OSP should, in order to give us all confidence, should still continue. Unless the witnesses then decide, I want no further part of this case, which is also a possibility. And that to give then credence to the fact that it was all political shenanigans and there was no reality to this. So that is my initial comment on it.
My brother, I'm very...
This is close to you.
Yes,
and
I'm very...
the specific one we are using, to do this discussion.
I'm very disturbed about the situation. But I think we have to throw the light bigger and wider than we are seeing now. Because I don't see so much of corruption, but I see so much of monetization. We need to define the two concepts separately and see where actually we can put our finger. To be honest with you, by interpretation of corruption by our statutes, it has a different meaning and connotation altogether than what is happening now. Because there is an expectation of an influence using materialism. There is an expectation of a performance which would otherwise have been contrary to that which you have done and which will be situated within the law and which makes it unlawful for you to have done, then we can pronounce corruption. Indeed, giving money to somebody cannot be interpreted as corruption. And also, even if you're a public officer, if somebody gives you money and it is unable to influence you to act contrary to what your office requires, that cannot be a complete chain of events that has culminated in corruption. So we need to be careful to understand the concepts very well, to be able to apportion the blame and apply the law. In this particular instance, I read that there is an allegation of the CEO having used public funds wrongly. Does it make it corruption? If you take money that doesn't belong to you from one position to the other to your benefit, that is stealing. That may not necessarily be corruption, but stealing, because corruption will go beyond the stealing to identify the action of the receiver and situate it within the law and see whether it is inconsistent.
Does your position change on looking at it as stealing rather than corruption?
Look,
or both, when this is what happened, as we understand the facts, that there has been transfers from the program's accounts into various accounts, and that the monies have been used to give to delegates.
Okay. So,
and when questioned, the answers are that this is what we do. We support people, with money. Is it loan? And we understand they are saying, no, this one is not loan. This one is grant. So for free, just giving it to them. And the question is asked, is it not curious that the monies are being distributed only to delegates in your constituency where you are interested in contesting and not any other part of the country at this particular time? So is that not using public office for private gain, which is the definition of corruption?
Samson, that's where you go. Is it the case that he is precluded from advancing money for the purpose for which he did? If under his mandate, he is allowed to do that. Number two, is it only to these identified persons that his office has advanced monies to? If it so comes out that there are other people who are also beneficiaries of the same program, and these people happen to be part of the general, why would you punish anybody?
So for now, let's stick to what we know. So that these are monies coincidentally at a very time that you are going into a contest. And the money is being given to beneficiaries who are delegates.
You see, when you narrow it like that, you are tempted to look at it differently. But again,
600 of them, right?
Look at the mandate of the office. What is he supposed to do? He's supposed to give some amount of money which has been designated as grant to business people or people who have proposals, is this money part of that grant money? Has he received the certain proposals as per the applicants? Do they qualify for the support that he is giving? It doesn't matter wherever they are. Are they not Ghanaians? If they are, and they have satisfied the criteria for selection, and they have been so, and something, you told me that there are about 600 delegates also.
That's right.
But we are talking about 10 people. So does it mean that he has only selected 10 people who have not qualified, or out of the, say 600, all of them applied, but only 10 of them may have qualified and may have received the advancement of resources? How criminal is that if they have conformed to the expectation of the office?
One of them is the Constituency Secretary, who presently is speaking for this particular candidate, and unimpeachable sources suggest that he alone received about 20,000 Ghana cedis.
Is it illegal for one person to receive 20,000 Ghana cedis? If the answer is no, then it cannot stop the CEO from doing, or the office from doing that. But Samson, me and you,
the person is the Constituency Secretary. The person is presently speaking for this particular candidate.
He may be anybody, but trust me, in the case of Salah and Attorney General, the complaint was about somebody's closeness to a judge. What was the determination? That Ghana is a closed community. If we begin to identify people's office with their personal relationships, we won't get anybody to do any public job. Something, me and you, we are friends. Assuming I am in charge of an office, you are duly qualified for an application you put before me. Am I going to reject you because you are my friend? Will that be fair on you? Am I going to select somebody who is not my friend over you, although you may be more qualified than the person?
So this is a coincidence, not a curious coincidence, really.
So
is that what you're saying?
In all cases, I will not use relationship as a criteria for selection or for rejection. But look at the terms of the office. What am I supposed to do in selecting? Well, first and foremost, is there a fund like that?
Right, there is.
Am I supposed to disburse this fund?
You are.
On what criteria will appear to be qualified as an applicant? So you take, is his name appear to be yes? Is his age 66? Yes. Is he married? Yes. Has he a business proposal? Yes. Does it fit into the context?
Additionally, is he a delegate? Am I contesting elections where he's a delegate?
Samson, being a delegate or contesting an election doesn't make you doesn't deny you of your Ghanaian citizenship. It doesn't deny you of also your business inclinations. It doesn't deny you of the proposal that you own. It doesn't deny you of the opportunity that is available to Ghanaians, of which you are also one.
So that you don't even see an abuse.
No.
You don't see an abuse of office if these facts are what they are.
Notwithstanding the possibility of an abuse, what I have started doing is go through the checklist.
Okay.
Does he qualify?
All right.
So you must pre-qualify as a means of going from stage 1 to stage 2. Then stage 2, all the qualified applicants are here. Am I going to deny Samson because Samson is a delegate? No. If Samson is a delegate and there is somebody who is not a non-delegate, what is the quality of their application? Is Samson number 1 and the other one number 2? Or is Samson number 2 and the other one number 1?
Right.
So if the non-delegate is number 1, then I am obliged to serve the non-delegate. But if, notwithstanding the relationship, Samson is still number 1, on what grounds will I deny the delegate because he's a delegate?
All
no.
Right.
So let's put those as a junior's considerations aside and look at the terms of office and the laws and also the programs and the capacities and the applications and all, and make sure that we are doing what is right by way of pre-qualifying the qualified people. so
Okay.
that we will go away. Otherwise, Samson, if you continue, he's a delegate, don't see him. And again, the good thing is that you say that there are 600 of them. 10 of them are being considered. And if 10 of them are being, what happened to the other 590? Did they apply and did
if
they
the
qualify?
10 are identified to appear to hold some sort of leadership within these delegates,
Does it disqualify you from anything?
Does that not suggest something to
Does
you?
it disqualify you also from anything?
That they may be the recipients who will then distribute.
Like I said, the friend scenario. Samson, are you telling me that because you are my friend, if you pre-qualify for a position, I should disqualify you because you are my friend? No,
All right.
I don't think so. Let's look at the checklist.
And from our investigations, there is no paperwork.
Well, that is another
for
matter.
all of this.
That is another matter. If there is no paperwork, then the pre-qualification criteria probably has been abused. If that is the case, then we can cite him for wrongdoing.
All right.
But
let me go to the phone. We have Kwame Anyenini on the line.
For purposes of expanding the law, me and you may sacrifice to defend him, and let's see what the law will put us and put him and put the OSP.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Ayima
I'm inviting him as counsel.
Mr. Ayima Duentri, thank you for joining us on Newsfile this morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Samson.
Right. So as we understand, the Constituency Secretary who is now speaking for Kofi Ofosu-Nkansah and justifying why he has to replace you, tells the whole world unambiguously that you were the first to have given some money to the delegates, about 300 cedis each to the 600 delegates. And then Kofi Ofosu-Nkansah, it gets to his turn, and he is also doing it, and it's only Christmas gifts that is being given. Why do you report him to the OSP if you are the one who did so?
Samson, I like the latter part of your question, that if I am the one. And I think the question should have been straight whether I am the complainant. Something I am not. And whatever the secretary is saying is mere speculation. So I am not the complainant. I have not reported Kofi Ofosu-Nkansah to OSP.
So we have confirmed that you indeed are not the one, but it's a constituent. Why would they accuse you of being the one who made the complaint?
It's something I'm competing again, and it gives me some confidence that probably because among the three of us contesting for the pending parliamentary primaries of Central, I'm probably the strongest. So maybe an accusing finger might be pointing at me, but I am not. And the secretary, when he says it emphatically, he was not even sure. He was relying on the fact that somebody had informed him. Unfortunately, the assistant secretary that he said informed him, said that he hasn't even spoken to me for weeks, and he had also not communicated to the secretary. So his allegation is unfounded.
I see. But was that really Christmas gifts that you were giving to them? Two of you have been distributing to your delegates, or this is clearly to win their votes?
I haven't admitted that I had given some of the amount that you mentioned. For 15 years that I have been a member of Parliament, every 6 months, it's a ritual that I do. I do to this, I do to Queen Mother, I do to party people. I do not know what the secretary is complaining of. And he stands to benefit most of the
He confirms that delegates receive these monies from you. And for his part, you actually sought to get his father to convince him to name his prize to you because you needed him as sort of an arrowhead to assist your campaign.
That is not correct. He never, when he started, this game, when he started the MP has done this. I thought that was too below the belt. So I called the father and said that it in our dialect, that it is the owner of the dog that can remove the bone from the dog's mouth. Because he is the father, I would want him to talk to the son to stop what he is doing. All these things that he's talking about are me telling him to name his price are fabricated if they are unfounded. And told him that never.
All right. But briefly, how is your campaign going? It does appear from what we hear from this particular constituency secretary, Felix Amachi, that you haven't done much, and that this Kofi Ofosu-Nkansah, since he got into government, he has helped people to get scholarships, taking them abroad. He pays medical bills for people and so on, and has been around the place helping the constituent. So you haven't done really much. He deserves to take over from you. Okay, so we lost him. It's okay. We can leave it there.
Maybe if you allow me to give the answer for him, because I also feel the same pain, and it's an institutional thing that our parties ought to address going forward. You see, we procure power.
I understand Imedu is back, so I'll get to you also. Yes, what do you say to my question?
Yes, so I haven't asked him at his alleged to name his price. I switch my language.
No, we have gone beyond that. I was asking that Felix Amachi has been speaking for Kofi Ofosu-Nkansah, and he says that you don't deserve another term after 4 terms, is it? Particularly because since you came into government and Kofi Ofosu-Nkansah got the opportunity of a small office, according to him, not even as big as your place, he has been able to use his influence in government to pay for people's scholarship abroad for studies, among others. He has been paying the medical bills of almost any constituent who is in need, and he's there helping the people. But you are not doing that, so you should check out.
Well, Samson, my simple response to that is, if you think that he is a better candidate, let me compete and lose. Why would he say that, don't take a form? Why would they urge me, step down, when other constituents are saying that they are urging me on to go on? It is not fair for a constituency secretary to say that the constituency is not doing well, or there is an opportunity, let me contest and lose. And if indeed the constituents don't like me, I will lose. Or instead, if he wants his candidate to win, he must go to the ground and talk to the delegates. And if they listen to him and he wins, so be it. All of us will rally behind him and campaign for the 2024 election.
All right.
To say that Fami Anyenini should not contest, it means that you are scared of me of winning. And something, clearly I'm going to win.
All right. We wish you the best of luck, the both of you. And yes, you wanted to say something, sort of an advice to the party.
To the parties. In fact, it is the parties that create this unwholesome competition, backbiting, undermining, and the sort. You see, when it comes to the season, the members of parliament with the party executives, we work together to procure power. When we procure the power, the distribution of the power puts somebody as MP, somebody as CEO, somebody as ambassador, somebody as minister, and all that. What the expectation of the aggregation means is that we should all mobilize the spoils of power and distribute equitably. Unfortunately, it happens that the people who procured the power through their sweat and effort will be in parliament. Other people who may not even have contributed to it through the magnanimity of the leader of the party, PE, president, or whoever, puts people in certain poor positions. In most of the cases, the people who are put in such positions per the whims of the leader, president of the country or leader of the party, become more resourceful than the people who prosecuted the power and who are prosecuting the agenda of government. In fact, Parliament...
What do you mean? Are they paid more than the MPs?
Most of them are paid more than the MPs. And the responsibilities on the MP, their responsibilities are not on those government appointees. And in any case, they have access to also resources, as we are talking about. And in most cases, in particular in our regime, we had advocated that if people like that wanted to contest for parliamentary seats, let them resign their positions 2 years before the primaries so that they will compete. But behind the scenes, the CEOs form also association of CEOs, and they have a gargantuan plan to return to parliament and replace the MPs who prosecuted the power. So when they have resources like that, and they also have opportunities, they share among themselves instead of sharing through the MPs. For example, if you are an MP, you want, let's say, you want scholarship for your constituent, chances are that you put in the application, it will not be considered at all. And the CEOs who work on another level, they meet annual monthly meetings. So they become very close friends. So that CEO from your constituency will also nominate somebody to his friend, scholarship secretariat CEO, who is meeting him every month. Say this is, and then they put in Asante Achimnov, Kwesi Mensah. Meanwhile, the MP doesn't know Kwesi Mensah. It is his friend, another CEO, who has brought the Kwesi Mensah. Kwesi Mensah gets the scholarship, albeit we are from the same constituency, so no problem. But the CEO will come back and tell the constituents that Apia Kubi, who is your MP, cannot do this. I, who is the CEO, have done this. And therefore, I will serve your interest better than Apia Kubi if I was selected. You see, and I see this whole indiscipline is within the government and within the parties. We must tackle it. Otherwise, there will be perpetual conflict every year when we have elections like this.
Samson.
What a country.
Samson.
What a country.
I have a problem even with the line.
And actually, presently, you know, the Controller Accountant General is contesting, and nobody is saying there's anything wrong with what he's doing. I think even this, we have been talking scholarship. The guy in charge of the scholarship secretariat, he's also contesting. Maybe the journalist should go check how many people got scholarship from that particular constituency and to compare if they were meritorious.
That is the whole, you see, Samson, the line of argument we've been having makes my stomach churn.
He speaks about the spoils of power.
Yes.
And how it ought to be distributed.
If you are helping people with your money.
He's being candid, frank.
Yes.
That's what he's doing here.
Yes. But if you have your money and you are helping people to come to power, or you are contesting, fine. The allegation in this case is that you have used public funds indirectly.
Which you have a control over to give us grants.
And that is why this is unwholesome. And some people say, oh, we only 10. They are part and parcel of an exercise you are involved in called an election. Is it today that you recognize that they need grant? They didn't recognize that they needed grant earlier. You waited for their primaries before you decided this person is somebody who needs a grant. It's the public financial side. But for us to even sit and say, oh, look, when they get into these positions, they then become more resourceful. What I'm hearing is that we now become even more corrupt. Because those resources are supposed to be distributed to all Ghanaians. So even if it's happening, let's not be here and give the impression that it is a good thing that is happening. It's reality. I'm not saying it's not reality.
I didn't say that.
No, I'm not saying you did. I'm saying it's reality. And you are, but we should speak against it, at least publicly.
Exactly what we are doing.
That this is, you cannot become resourceful by virtue of the fact that in a way that influences elections. If you're helping people, help. Let everybody say that. But to say that I've helped, therefore, as he is saying, therefore, I'm better than the next person because I've used government resources to help you.
All right. So, Professor Bafo Ajmandia, there was a good reason I decided to speak to the politicians before I get to you and Kofi Bento. Particularly at the Scholarship Secretariat, Alhaji Suleiman sent me a message, and he was on our Joy Change Speaker series, and he mentioned how rotten the Scholarship Secretariat is. Prof, let's hear you on the OSP's fight against the corruption in elections and what you think he should be doing, whether he will succeed or not.
Well, thank you, Samson, and good morning to my good friends in the studio. Listen, Samson, let me make just a quick comment on this issue of corruption. I think the sophistry with which educated Ghanaians are able to define and redefine actions in the political arena, and the kinds of arguments we push makes me wonder whether the education all of us have been receiving over the years, that education is a curse when it comes to governments. Because look, our old people and so-called uneducated people will not be so sophisticated in defining corruption as a way of getting away when we are caught. And I think one reason why the public has lost, or perhaps is losing very rapidly, confidence in the political system that we have and the leaders we have is because of this sophistry. We can define corruption in many ways, but listen, clearly, there's a problem with our political system and the kinds of characters that are elected to lead us into paradise, so to speak. There's a serious case of political corruption and moral corruption. Nobody wants to discuss these issues when it comes to this. Look, I will say that if you look at the state institutions, and a friend in the studio referred to perhaps meetings of CEOs and all, there are certain state institutions that this and previous governments and this government, they set it up and give these institutions millions of cedis to address certain social problems. One of them is the NEIP, economic problems, or Maslow and all these kinds of organizations. We seldom get reports about their performance, or especially the financial performance of these institutions. All we hear is that we have trained 40,000. We have given so much to 100,000 people, claiming victory. Yet, the problems that they were mandated to address persist. At times, the problems even become, broadened. So, I think there's a serious problem we have to look at. Now, with the OSP, certainly, Mr. Jaben is having serious problems. He has come publicly to express his frustrations, either because he's finding it difficult to penetrate the system that is so solid. And this system, by the way, is not just NPP system, it's NPP NDC. I can bet you, if there's change of government and get a new government from the other side, these issues will still be there. So the point I'm making here is there is a need for, until we get the transformation that we need, because I sincerely believe if there was a third choice in these coming elections, most people will opt for that, because our politicians have used their sophistry, their legal studies, whatever studies they've done, to continuously trick the public. So if you sense a high level of frustration in this country, it is because of these kinds of arguments that we make. Somebody gets a job with nothing behind the person in terms of experience or wealth or anything. 4 years later, this person wants to be a parliamentarian. With what? With the public money that he's been entrusted to administer. That's my thinking. Because if you give me a job and I didn't have a house, I didn't have a car, my bank account perhaps was zero, and I'm able to dish out money to my constituents, whether they are Christmas gifts or whatever, my first question would be, where did you get the money? And if you look at a trend, Samson, it's not only under this government. That's why I always have my problem with the two parties. People who get into such positions, call them CEOs, state agents, heading state agents, 90% of them, towards the end of their first term on the position, will seek to get into parliament. And most of them win because they have resources that you and I don't have. That is the issue. Where do they get the money from? So if you go and dish out money because Christmas, you are giving gifts, from where? So I think because perhaps our leadership are not taking this issue seriously by reprimanding, exposing, prosecuting, putting people in jail and for all these things, the thing continues because it seems, very unfortunately, that these two parties, this duopoly, it's a condominium. They know what they're doing. And they are continuously ripping this country off. These are my initial comments.
Do you think this might be too much for the special prosecutor, particularly dealing with politicians? This is a special prosecutor who is already being vilified. You can see concerted attempts to destroy the purpose for which it was set up. Will it succeed? And we are waking up to, just yesterday, another big politician who potentially could have become the flag bearer of the party and may have continued to become a president of this country, go to Bantama and tell the delegates there that they should vote for his brother so that he does not tell the secrets of corruption that he knows. But if they vote against his brother, he will tell the world about the rot that he knows that has gone on between the incumbent whilst he was at the presidency as a deputy chief of staff.
Sad, isn't it, Samson? Very sad. See, when I mentioned political corruption, I also mentioned moral corruption. This is what we are witnessing. If you know somebody has committed a crime against the state, and you go public to say, well, I'm holding on to this truth, something that may have damaged this country's development. So if you vote against my brother, then I will reveal it. For what purpose? I don't even understand. If these people who want to rule over us have this kind of mindset, I don't understand. But you see, the thing is this. That's why people like me, I continuously say there's a need for a radical change, first in our constitution, and the way we do political business. The system that we created, and I don't blame those who wrote the Constitution and those who have been writing our laws, we have created an inherent corrupt system in all of these things. And people do these things and get away. We talk about transparency, accountability. When has anyone, after finishing a tenure in the state institutions, that person has been called to, if auditors do their job, do we know? The public needs to. So there's no public accountability in these kinds of matters. So I guess the politician, and I'm not saying all politicians are evil, please don't get me wrong, but from what we hear and what we observe, it is pathetic that people wanting to rule this country do not have what it takes to make this country wholesome. You see, lately we're getting videos from Benin, for Rwanda, we are seeing what is going on in other countries. And Ghana likes to say we were the first to be independent, south of the Sahara, we are the first and blah, blah, we are first in everything. We are the last in most things that we cherish. That is the basic fact. And more sadly, Samson, when the campaign hasn't started, but when you hear what politicians are promising, what they want to do, it comes nowhere near attacking the fundamental faith that is embedded in our system.
All right.
So if you ask me about the OSP, I'm afraid Mr. Jabin will leave the office a very disappointed individual.
Wow. So Kofi Bento, I suppose you would have calmed down. I was deliberate because I know you. You are a very good friend. You would have calmed down now. And see, on this particular issue, for example, the OSP made a call to the CEO to report on Tuesday the 9th. And they made a call to him on the 4th and to report on Tuesday the 9th. But he reported on the 10th, Wednesday. The OSP was keeping everything under wraps, quietly, doing its work. And then they decided to now blast it to the public. Got party supporters to go to the office where they were taking the people arrested to go and seek to get evidence. And those people were rather blocking the OSP, denying them access to the office. And you have heard party people now turn this rather against the OSP and say he's acting in Rambo style, arresting people. What do you say, Kofi Bento?
Good morning, Samson. Yes, I'm calm and I'm hopeful. You know, the OSP's job is not easy. It was never going to be easy. And something I often say, that do not be surprised by what should not surprise you. So what we should look for is a man like Kisei Jaben, who, despite what he has to deal with, will proceed, will continue, will struggle through, and will get us to a better place. And that's why he deserves our support. So it's not surprising. I wish it was different. I wish the rhetoric you hear from our leaders about how we want or need to fight corruption would translate into their action. They don't want to fight corruption. They don't, want it to stop. In fact, many people go into public office specifically because they believe that when they put themselves next to public resources, they get opportunity to be corrupt and solve their personal problems. So it's unfortunate that we don't have a moral or ethical leadership. And I agree with Professor Bafo Jumandia that this kind of situation is what keeps many people also away. Because if you have a moral leadership, if you have a moral or ethic, you have a situation where even the semblance of it, is disturbing to them. So we have a problem on our hands which we need to deal with. But what we all have to appreciate is that it doesn't solve itself. And even with determined work like what Kisi is doing, it will not solve itself easily or quickly. So we have to be consistent in our fight against corruption and appreciate that there will be a time price to pay, and we must pay that time price. And we must also have a lot of latitude for people like Kisei Japan, for them to make mistakes in trying to fight this corruption thing. I've said before on this platform that it's like making sausage. When it's done, it's a nice and smooth product. But the process of fighting corruption is messy and you don't want to be there. But you have to go through that if you're going to make the sausage and enjoy it at the end of the day. So generally on the issue of fighting corruption, we should not despair. We should not, be despondent. We should not give up. It's too soon. What we should do is consistently support the people who are in the arena and trying to do the work, like you said, Jabin, and everybody else, the police. You have an IGP in the person of, IGP Dampare, who is doing the best I have seen in my lifetime. But what do you see? People rise up against him. What is not surprising is that people rise up against people who are fighting corruption. Other people should rise up in their support. You have people like Domelovo, who rose up to fight it, and he was fought back, And again, you need to find people to rise up to support him. In that matter, it happened. But we lost the court. And I say we lost the court because the court did not act timeously. Later on, they come to say, yes, we were right. I'm saying this because next time, we need to find institutions and people rising up to the occasion timeously in defense of these people who are in the arena fighting corruption. All of us cannot bear that office and do that work. We will have to push people forward to take it up and do it. So Kissi is doing it right, okay? And we all have to support him actively and not give up. On the specific issues, one, let it all be clear that the OSP is acting within his powers. He's doing his job and doing it properly within the law. He must be supported. The other important thing that happens is and he has been proven guilty. But if the report against him and the prima facie evidence against him is what we hear it is, then he must understand that one, he is not immune from investigation. So what is going on is investigation. It is not persecution. And that is the work of the OSP. The next thing we must appreciate is that, look, corruption fight necessarily requires popular support. Now, the way to get popular support is to start it from the top. The OSP will fail miserably if he leaves these glaring problems like monetization of our politics, which we all see, and goes after people stealing books and little monies here and there. So this is the right approach. So people must appreciate that, look, there's a lot of calmness needed. Let the man do his job. If Kofi Ofosu is innocent, let him prove himself, okay? The problem of monetization of politics is a long-standing problem which is getting worse. And as it gets worse, it will bear even more terrible results. And therefore, we must make sure we nip it in the bud. And this is the way to do it. So let's get all the things together and appreciate that we are on the right path. This is the messy process of fighting corruption, but it is absolutely necessary if we're going to get somewhere.
What do you say to those who say this is going to be a Herculean task for the OSP, also because the law doesn't seem to be so clear-cut on this kind of vote buying that we see in the open? The representation of the people's law, of course, talks about bribery in elections. It says if you directly or you act through another person, give money or obtain an office for a voter or in order to induce the voter to vote or refrain from voting, if you corruptly do some of these things. It also talks about if you advance monies for the purposes of, gaining the vote. It talks about treating, which is even the worst of it, that if you corruptly, either by yourself or through another person, before, during, or after an election, you give or provide or you pay wholly or in part the expenses of giving or providing meat, drink, entertainment, or provision to or for any person for the purposes of corruptly influencing them to vote or refrain from voting for one person. There's also the undue influence part. You do it directly or you do it through another person, you will be in trouble. These go to public elections. The primaries are not deemed to constitute public elections, but internal elections. The Political Parties Act only adds for public elections to be the election of the party executives and the leaders, not primaries to elect, MPs. It is only in the case of the Yevi and Avalifo where the Supreme Court said a political party is a public entity, and therefore, if a situation arises, they should be deemed as such and dealt with. So some say the OSP will have a difficult task. What do you say?
I don't think so. It looks like that, but Samson, this is why as to whether the laws are sufficient or not, and whether the OSP can, secure conviction, that's why the courts are there to take a look at it. What we must also appreciate is that there are other nuances to this. This is a public official who is accused of using public finances or resources for a personal good. So even if it's not in the area of the Political Parties Act where, those things apply, on that alone, the usage of public funds and whatever it is for whatever purpose, a lot can be done. But for me, we shouldn't go into the legal nitty-gritty here. That's why the OSP exists. The important point, however, is this. Again, in fighting corruption, we have to appreciate that you have to get into the arena and be doing it and be, taking things as they come. And that's why I said we have to have a wide latitude. People like Kissi Jammeh. And where we find that there are loopholes, so the things that we've listed, if they turn out that, this thing has happened, but there are loopholes that make the person walk away free, then we need to amend the law. Again, fighting corruption takes diligent, consistent effort over time. We won't snap it in one, fell swoop. So I hear what you're saying, but that is exactly why we must go at it the way Kissi Jammeh is going about it. Pick them up. He didn't wake up yesterday and then decided to go after Kofi Ofosu. There was a complaint. There are this and that allegations. He has acted upon that. He goes to court and makes his case. If Kofi Ofosu turns out to be innocent, he should walk. All right. But if he's guilty, then he should go in. But in the process, we get to understand the working of the law and how it plays out. But that is how we fight corruption. See, in my view, it is not a requirement of Kissi Jammeh to be successful in every attack, in every effort to unearth corruption or fight it or reveal it. He does not need to ensure success in every effort. What he needs to do is to be active in fighting it and show diligent effort at every time. It will be a problem if he's seen to be selective. It will be a problem if he's seen to be biased. Diligent effort is what we require, and consistent diligent effort, so that when the process is gone through, people who turn out to be innocent appreciate that, look, there is this process where if I am truly innocent, it will show me as innocent. All right. And therefore, they will mind what they do so they don't even get into trouble. Okay. But then they also know that even the semblance of corruption is high risk. It is most uncomfortable to go near it. Okay? So do not be seen, do not be suspected. And if you can't handle that stuff, don't go into public office. All right. So for me, thank you. Success is not required, but diligent effort is required. And this is what makes corruption high risk and most uncomfortable. And it is a standard. In 30 seconds, Kofi, in 30 seconds for yourself and Professor Bafo Adjumandua, as we take a quick break and return to our other issues, do you expect certain persons within the hierarchy to be speaking about some of these things so that the OSP2 may feel he has support to go after this? Yes, Samson, I will personally desire that everybody running for office verbalizes his support against corruption. Everybody, President Mahama, Vice President Bawumia, everybody verbalizes. Again, it is not required. But they are all paying these monies. How can they be speaking about it? Well, it is one of the things that I am looking for. You know where I stand, and I am looking, for instance, for each of the presidential candidates, including Vice President Bawumia, to take a strong stand against corruption. All right, and thank you. If they don't do it, it will be a mark against them. Again, it is not required that Kissi Jammeh be perfect. It is required that he be given the support necessary to do his work to the best of his ability. Right. So yes, same question to you, Professor Bafo Adjumandua. Who are you expecting beyond people like you? I'm talking about people holding public office. At what level should be saying what? For example, there's an MP, Alfred Obeng, who told the public that if his opponents are going to pay 10,000, he will double it. If they are going to pay 20,000, he will double it. He said he has kept money in dollars for that purpose during the primaries, and no party person has said anything.
Samson, talking about corruption at times, I like what my good friend Kofi said, that we better not give up. We have to keep consistently fighting. But the fact is that all these things go on. So if you ask me, where should we, at what level should we be talking? Certainly the president. We have created a very strong executive. He's the president. If the president were able to stand firm, denounce, condemn, make sure corporates are put away, that is how people will begin to believe that something is happening. So we need strong statements from whoever is the leader. But you see, the biggest problem here, too, as we all say, corruption is embedded in our system. Secondly, we are a country where we seem to be afraid of enforcing the law. Maybe one of them said earlier, started a case where we are all related, we are friends, we are brothers, blah, blah. So nobody gets penalized. Daylight robbery, people get away. Once we are not able to begin to enforce the law and punish people who are found to be corrupt through the proper processes of the law, we will never succeed. We are afraid to simply enforce the law. And that, for me, is the biggest challenge. There's no democracy in this world where there have been success without law enforcement, period.
Right.
And we are afraid to enforce them.
Thank you very much. And many are worried now that seeking political office is to the highest bidder. All you need is have a deep pocket. You come and pay the delegate and you unseat whoever is there and you move on. K. Amofa says, I do not know anymore what we want as Ghanaians. If MPP are complaining about the work of the OSP they appointed, what will be the fate of the OSP in the event NDC wins the 2024 elections? We need to allow public agencies to work. Little Tete says, to my mind, if we do not get a handle on money in politics and the degree to which big money controls the political process in this country, nobody is going to bring about the changes that is needed in this country for the middle class and working families. Hulu Fumwa, dishonorable. If I steal public money and give it to individuals so they can do something for me, it is corruption. And I bet this creature will call himself a moral entity. P. Boache 88, you say Ghana is sick, where our leaders only care for next elections. CEOs are abusing their office. John Mufti, politicians have become so accustomed to this sort of corruption. They genuinely think it is what election campaigns are about, a competition of promises for partiality. Political corruption is rampant in this country and needs to be corrected. This one says, Alhaj Suleiman says, scholarships are giving us confetti. The scholarship secretariat is a rotting zone. And the Apia Kubi nails it right on the head. And Don Pino, it's such a long message, but you say what you have a problem with is the OSP's style of selective, prosecution. John Mahama and the NDC also spent money in similar ways, and they are not being pursued. Why is he pursuing people in the NPP? Okay, the politicians never cease to amaze you. Is this not synonymous to turning the public accounts of a state institution into the private bank account of the CEO if there is no paperwork for the payment and transfers made? Wow, the facts seem to be different from what was initially put out. Yeah, that's correct, because the OSP doesn't want to be speaking in the public, but the politicians are taking the lead to speak. Those who are involved or connected are taking the lead to speak, and they are saying all the things, and the OSP is not replying them. Musa Batoa in Kumasi says, I'm surprised Honorable Andiapia Kubi is lamenting regarding the undue advantage that CEOs have over the MPs. Is he not the same person who failed to cooperate with the OSP relative to corruption allegations? He led 80 MPs against the anonymous wealthy businessman. Kofi Bentil could have been fair to the fact that MPP started monetizing our democracy in 2007 at Legon, where they shared dollars during presidential primaries. Really? You are saying the NDC only learned from the NPP? Right. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
You see,
Welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, as always, we put Ghana first. And my guests helping us with this discussion are Professor Baffour Ajimandria, who is former United Nations Senior Governance Advisor. Kofi Bento, Senior Vice President, Imani Africa. Andy Kwame Appiah Kubi is member, Subsidiary Legislation Committee of Parliament and MP Asante Akim's North. Alexander Segbefia is Director, International Relations, the National Democratic Congress.
Former Minister.
Yes, former Minister of State. That's right. Thank you very much. Now, as we move to the next issue, I need to make this, I can call it a rejoinder from the named person involved, that it is not true that there's no paperwork covering what was done. That's all he wants us to know. All right, so let the OSP continue its work and let's see how it goes. Now, let's deal with this briefly, shall we? And as you have followed, there was a certain New Africa Foundation that organized what it called the convention and brought in distinguished Africans from elsewhere to that program. Professor Patrick L.O. Lumumba, Kenyan lawyer and activist, very well known, Pan-Africanist at heart. Peter Obi, Nigerian politician and businessman, the man who caused a lot of trouble for the last election, almost could have won that election at a first attempt with the youth as his backbone. And Dr. Arekana, that's outspoken woman, AU ambassador to the USA. The government cancelled the program at the last minute, issued a statement and said that there was another state program that was supposed to happen that day at the same venue, and they made a mistake in giving it out, and therefore they will refund the money that was paid by Freedom Jacob Caesar. That's the man you know, the man behind the mask. We understand that it's actually 30,000. We have seen receipts of that, and not only 10,000. It's actually 30,000 that the state has to refund. But many are disturbed about the development. First, let's hear what transpired as the security stormed the place and stopped the program from happening.
You sent your men, Dampari. You sent your men, and then you have the order from above. You know the orders, and you know the powers. This thing is not in the remit. Is it not in the remit of the Constitution? Hasn't it been organized within the remit of the law? So how can you tell us that the power above us is cancelling the program? Who networked power to them? Who gave full power? Article 1 of our Constitution. What does it tell us? It says supremacy resides in not in the hands of the public, not in the hands of government. This is a state apparatus, not a government apparatus.
I've no doubt in my mind that there is a conspiracy of sorts by the elements that it should happen the way it has happened. So this is not an occasion for lamentation. It is an occasion for redoubling our efforts. This is the occasion for which the English word serendipity was created. It is a serendipitous occasion that heralds a great future for the continent of Africa. We are here, therefore, to say that the message will be alive and well.
what I always say is that it is due to one problem, leadership. It is failed leadership over the years that brought Africa where it is. This is not the issue of colonialism. It is the issue I want us to start dealing with our problem.
Educated people who are sitting in the boardrooms and they choose to be mute. And when they are mute while representing us, that means 1.4 billion Africans are mute. It is not the villager who is sitting at the boardroom table. It is the elite, the educated. So my son, what is our education doing to us?
I am a son of this soil, and I can add value to humanity, and I came here to do that. I came here to add value to this world and to nature. I am not going to live here without God even being proud of me. And when I'm not here also, I want you to remember that I came, and I want my absence to be felt. And for that reason, I know you're looking for the man. But the man in the mask is sitting in front of you. I am nothing to be scared of. I came to you as your salvation. I don't invest in myself alone. I am investing in you.
Right. So let's begin with Professor Bafo Adjumandua. What do you say about this? It's become clear that Nana Kwame Bediako, popularly known as Sheda or Freedom Jacob Caesar, the wealthy businessman, intends to, contest elections for the presidency. He's made that clear now. But will that be any basis for which the program or event will be cancelled? Do you know of any other event that replace that day's event?
Well, Samson, this is one of those episodes in our national life where right-thinking people begin to wonder what is really going on. You see, events of this nature, before they schedule it and after they schedule it, and I don't know whether it's the Jubilee House or Ministry of Foreign Affairs, whoever gave the venue, I'm sure there was enough time for national security to do due diligence on the event, the sponsors, and the potential speakers. Every nation has that obligation. So if they did it, it's nothing new. In fact, I'll be surprised if they didn't do it. Then somebody simply slept on his job. So before you grant this, before you authorize the use of such a huge public place, you must have done your due diligence to determine the nature and whether there's inherent threat to state security or whatever. Now that they waited till the very, very last minute, when people have already gathered, speakers have already landed in the country on their way to the Independence Square, then all of a sudden, armed police and soldiers, I understand, cordons the place and say that the place is cancelled. That was a brute use of state power. It shouldn't have happened at all, you see. Because, as I said, if they'd done their due diligence, they would have known what to do prior to the actual event occurring. Also, if you look at the impressive array of speakers, these are the new voices of Africa. And they are talking about Pan-Africanism, a concept that was popularized by our own first president. So they came to pay due respect to a country that used to be the citadel of Pan-Africanism. For some reasons, Ghana, we don't even talk that language anymore.
And the choice of the Black Star Square?
Very symbolic. Very, very symbolic. And these are not ordinary people. Dr. Africana was AU ambassador to the United Nations in New York. And because of his pronouncements, especially on the exploitation of Africa by foreign countries, in this case, the French in particular, how they've exploited their former colonies, continue to exploit. This is what led the AU to withdraw his appointment, because France and other Western countries could not simply accommodate. Pierre Lumumba, he's oftentimes in Ghana. I even thought he had a wife in the country because he's here all the time. He's a Ghana lover. Peter Obi, a new guy on the block in Nigerian politics. What kind of threat would the pronouncements of these individuals pose to the country? Of course, they were going to excite young people. And there's no doubt that young people need new voices because the old voices have become archaic. We don't give any inspiring voice anymore. So if these people have emerged to inspire young people, I don't see them threatening. So for me, this was more than embarrassing. It was a scandal because the personalities involved are not ordinary people. And for the government to even issue a statement that it conflicts with another scheduled event. We didn't see any event before, during, and after that particular day. So why would the government lie to these people? You see, there's something in statecraft perhaps I need to mention. A president of a sovereign nation should always be protected from scandals such as this. It's possible that whoever took the decision did so without even resorting or referring to the president or some other authorities. In this case, one will have expected the president himself to make an pronouncement on this, to denounce it if he didn't approve or he didn't know about it, because they have embarrassed him as the head of state. Second, if that were the case that somebody did that, then somebody must take the fall. You take the fall to protect your president. But in our system, in our governance system, you don't get people taking the fall to protect a higher person like the president.
Does it not matter, Prof, that Nana Kwame Bediako was going to take advantage of this mammoth crowd and a decent, stellar group of speakers to announce his bid to, participate in the politics for leadership?
You see, Samson, there is something unknown here. Because personally, I believe if these personalities, Lumumba, Arikana, Obi, were to know that this young man was going to use them to launch his political campaign, then I'm sure they wouldn't have come.
PLO has said so.
Well, good. You see, because they wouldn't have come. Because that would have been tantamount to interfering in the political affairs of the country. Foreigners don't come and crowd around an individual who is seeking political power in a country. And these are very smart individuals. PLO, Arikana, Obi, these are very smart individuals. So I don't know whether I should say they were tricked to come or they're not giving the true story of what was going to happen. I don't know.
How exactly would they mounting a platform of a foundation belonging to someone who is interested in the politics amount to interfering in our politics?
You see, if you're an international figure, as these individuals are, and they are seeking Pan-Africanism, you do not want to antagonize any particular country, especially a country like Ghana, that has a history that we're talking about. You see, if you stand behind somebody, I'm sorry, even look, in ordinary election, have you heard of any African leader going to another country to support a candidate? We don't do that. Courtesy doesn't require it. So I believe strongly, and if Lumumba has said it, then I believe it. Because if he knew that they were going to be used to launch a political party or a political candidate, I'm sure they would have declined. But you see, the whole thing, first of all, I understand the permission was for a black festival, not a convention. There is a certain cloud over this. And it's unfortunate because the essence of the meeting for these prominent Africans to bring their voices together, to excite the youth. From Ghana, they said they were going to other African countries. That would have been excellent. So this whole situation if I have a way of investigating to know the motive for bringing them, I think it would be interesting to know. But nonetheless, the idea of government stepping in at the last minute when people have legitimately secured a public place and there's no indication of violence or threat or anything of the sort, and cutting it off, that for me was scandalous. Okay.
You definitely want to hear the president say something about this. Now, Kofi Bento, if it were that this is a clear interference in our politics, which is not allowed, the reason given formally, officially by the state does not include that. It simply says they made an oversight. We gave it to you, but there is another state program at the same place at the same time, and that should take precedence over yours, which we had approved and taking 30,000 for.
Samson, see, we are giving this thing way too much importance. I don't think it merits that. Every event in any country has its footprint. It has what, its significance is and what it's likely to cause or what, its importance is. And as far as I am concerned, I disagree with Prof. The president should not go anywhere near this. This is somebody arranging a meeting and then somebody deciding that they are going to cancel the meeting for very bad, wrong reasons.
Somebody from where? From the presidency. Somebody from where? The presidency.
Yes. And, I don't think we should spend too much time on that, but that is what should be investigated. That things emanate from the presidency. And like what Prof is saying, some of us wonder whether indeed those things have the proper authority. Our presidency sometimes seems to issue things and you don't know who is signing what. And that for me is more, worrying than the event itself. Look, all respect to the young man, he's done quite a bit, but this is a flamboyant young man we all know who is given to bombastic exhibitionism, okay? Sometimes you find him taking pictures clothed from head to toe in designer leather wear, which is colored the same way as his vehicles. This is the gentleman who has tigers, This is a very flamboyant guy. Even his political campaign involved voodoo masks, hidden strategies, invitation of people who were not exactly told what they were going to do. I mean, there is a style about this young man. And look, after all the tension and everything that we go through in this country, a bit of drama is useful, even in, presidential, politics. He says he's our salvation and he's here to save us. Let's take it as it is. He's wearing a voodoo mask, but he says we should not be afraid of him. Let's take it like that. He's going to inject some kind of, levity into the political campaign. What we should not do is to deploy serious state resources to try and, cancel his event or whatever it is. The cancellation is more news than the event. All right. And I think we should be sparing in the use of state resources. All right. The young men who were agitated were right. They have a right to that space. It is public space. If he wants to bring, look, Julius Malema and all this, these speakers are known. We all love them for what they represent and what they say. If for nothing at all, put them there, let them speak and let them excite the youth. If you are somebody who's afraid of these people, you are the wrong person. So look, my view of this thing is that the cancellation was totally unnecessary. They should have let the young man do his thing. In the scheme of things politically and nationally, I really do not think that this rises to the kind of event that requires presidential intervention. Okay, this is a young man who is injecting some sort of, a different dimension into our politics. Just let him roll. The election will come on and we'll know everybody's smoothness level.
Professor Kwekwaza says the Black Star Square is a public square. It is the consummate forum for public deliberation and civic participation. It's the quintessential marketplace of ideas. While it is necessarily managed by the government, we must be skeptical of any governmental restrictions that attack freedom of expression. Event organizers need not specify in advance the issues that they are going to talk about, nor do they need the approval of government on what they talk about. Such prior restraints are irredeemably unconstitutional. He says, whatever these Pan-Africanists had to say may not be of interest to some of us, but they had the right to use the public square and to express their views there. The cancellation was just unconstitutional. The reason given for it was an outright embarrassment. Yes.
Let me start from your last statement. Honestly, I also believe that the reason given for the cancellation was total embarrassment. I'm sure that they themselves gave the reason where that was not correct. Nevertheless, I am also disappointed at the intelligence gathering that went on before the announced event. In fact, although state security may have picked certain negative vibes just before the commencement of the event, however, I thought that it should have been done long before. I mean, as Prof was talking about diligence in national security investigation, national security matters, I side with Prof in saying that we were not that diligent in mobilizing the necessary information, security information for the decision to be taken, albeit that the decision was taken before the information was available to national security apparatus.
The fact is that we are not being told that it was cancelled for security reasons.
Well, you see, me and you, Samson, that reason given that the place had already been allotted for another event cannot hold water because, as Prof said, nothing happened before, during, and after the event. So it couldn't have been the case that there was a pre-programmed event before this one. So let's not even go there. We can't. That's why I condemn the reasoning behind it. Nevertheless, whoever has a right has also a commensurate responsibility. And therefore, the Constitution will not give rights alone and not also attach it to a commensurate responsibility. So whoever is pointing to a right must be careful that that right also procures a responsibility. So you cannot take the right and leave the responsibility. And so also, the national security has a right to ensure there is peace, stability, cohesion, national progress, and the like. They have a responsibility also to ensure that. So that's why I fault them for not having given prior notice of this happening.
The way to secure peace, stability, and national security is to scuttle a program where people are invited to. You don't attend without invitation, actually.
Understand the reasoning, the motives, and the effects, and the consequential and tangential impact on national security. It's always important for the national security to be abreast with time and give a briefing to the presidency. So if that didn't happen and presidency thought that it was just a Pan-Africanist meeting, then that was wrong. And I would blame the security apparatus for not having identified that motive earlier. And if I listen to Professor
Professor
Lumumba,
yeah,
he said, "I am so disappointed. I was tricked into coming because if I knew, then that is where they wanted.
If I knew that
this was
he has political ambitions,
yes, because.
But as for the reason, they were told." And if you look at even the invitation card that was sent to people, the invitation cards were non-transferable, and the invitation said that you are invited to attend the convention, a platform where true African voices come live to inspire hope, change, and independence.
I don't have any problem with that, and even I will encourage the Minister for Foreign Affairs to bring such assembly of eloquent, speakers on Africanism to Africa, because the concept of Africanism must be managed carefully so that we have a sustainable education on Pan-Africanism going forward. So I will encourage our minister to bring them back, probably in a different program, for them to continue to, elogize trade barriers and also people in Africa, leaders who are performing. So it was not going to be, in fact, I had prepared to go. I was going to be part of the audience because I wanted to listen to, particularly Madame Arikana. She's my hero. I was so disappointed when African Union rather brought her back from her position as representative of Africa in the United Nations. I was so disappointed. Somebody who was opening the cans for the worms to come out, you rather disappoint her. So I was very much ready to listen to her, and I would have thought that if they had brought them into a more refined arena for us to be able to listen, because where we are going...
A more refined arena?
For listening purposes.
Okay, so in fact, I need to place this on record. The comments that have been attributed to PLO Lumumba, that he said, quote, "If I knew the real intention of the convention, I wouldn't have come. I was misled by the New Africa Foundation." I'm reliably informed that he never made those comments. It's only fake on social media and being circulated around as something he said, but he never said it.
I would think that, Prof, if he didn't say that, and this is being attributed to him, he has enough power and will to be able to articulate his right position. Right. Because I'm relying on it in my argument.
Yeah.
Maybe
we have all relied on it.
Maybe unfairly though. But again, if you look at sovereignty, issues of sovereignty, issues of diplomacy, issues of political courtesy, it was not right for political actors of that status to just descend on Ghana to promote a single person's political agenda. It wouldn't be right, because you will be undermining the diplomatic relations between countries. You will be undermining...
So the real thing was this.
Yes.
Already there's fear. Alan Chamanting is taking away a huge chunk, some significant number of MPP people.
That's internal politics.
Freedom Jacob Caesar, if he also comes on the scene, is likely to make it difficult.
If he wants to contest as a
this was a fear.
Candidate, no. How would that be a fear? If I want to contest as a presidential candidate, I have to be honest enough to myself and to a nation and declare that stand. But to hide behind a cloak of international speakers saying that they are coming to preach Africanism. If you want to rely on Africanism in your political...
Why is that hiding? Why is that hiding? That I want to be a presidential candidate,
at the time,
but I am someone who is preaching Africanism. Therefore, I want to have significant Africans come to the country and speak on that subject, not on my campaign. Okay, what's wrong with that? What's that hiding?
If he had indicated that I am going to be a presidential candidate, I want to be, and I want to rely on Pan-Africanism. I want to host a program on Pan-Africanism. That would have been fair for all of us.
All right.
To give the necessary intent and warning. Then, if he indicated that to Prof. Lumumba, and Prof. Lumumba accepted to come, or Madame Arikana, and she accepted to come, then we will have issues of diplomacy, issues of sovereignty, issues of political courtesy to deal with them. And they would also have opportunity of considering whether it was right for them to come here to collectively promote the agenda of a possible presidential candidate. I'm sure they would not do it. So the fact that we were not aware of the intentions behind the assembly, that made some of us very suspicious. But again, I think that Pan-Africanism is still relevant now as it was in times past. And therefore, any opportunity for the students of today to learn about Pan-Africanism will be welcome. And I encourage even the government to continue to pursue that line of action. But I also encourage this young man who wants to become president. Let us not take it that he cannot be and therefore will not allow. Let him be that open and transparent and declare his interest and come in and throw his heart and contest it. I mean, for nothing at all, he'll be part of history. So for me, what happened, what the state agency did, for me, was nothing wrong. Ensuring state security, ensuring that there was nothing beyond the event. But what I'm saying is that they did not act timeously. And I'm very worried about that.
Okay.
And they should have acted well.
All right.
Alex,
what do you have to say? And again, people have found it interesting that he brought the delegation to meet with President Mahama.
Oh, Mahama is a Ghanaian. So if somebody comes and he's a former president.
Yeah, so it's Alex I'm asking now.
Oh, somebody comes to meet with him, there's nothing wrong.
All right.
Thank you so much. I want to take some of the bits from both Professor Bafo Adjiman, Kofi Bentil, and obviously my colleague. This has been a mammoth failure of the security agents with regard to due diligence. And the way they solved it is the problem. Has now become a problem in itself. Assuming there was a problem in the first place.
Yes, you all keep referring to security issue. What's the security issue?
This is the point. That's why I say, assuming there was a problem in the first place. But if you have someone who has been advertising around billboards with a mask, with all kinds of statements going with it, national security should have been very interested. Who is behind the mask even before the mask was removed? And if you know this, and that person then says, I'm organizing a conference under, not under my name, but under an organization, and I'm inviting A, B, or C, the first question that should have been asked, are you speaking? And in what capacity will you be speaking? That is, for me, simple, basic. And when you find out, even if he tells you mistruths, and you want to then close down a function of this, you tell all of us why. Let us be upset, but at least we have the genuine reason. But when you don't tell us why, or you actually lie to us, or tell us, give us a reason that doesn't make sense yesterday, today, or even tomorrow, you set yourself up for ridicule. And it is worse when it comes from a government that is not known historically for its Pan-Africanist position. MPP is seen in some circles as anti-Nkrumah. That's how they are seen. They can give various examples of how they've done the renovation of the Nkrumah Museum, all kinds of things. But they are seen as anti-Pan-Africanism, principally because of them fighting Nkrumah when he wanted independence for Ghana, and even sending a delegation abroad to say that we were not ready for independence. So that stigma or that tag rests with them, and it has a historical context. So when you want to stop people who are seen as the forefront runners of Pan-Africanism today, in a world where the youth are looking for some difference in our body politic or in our thought processes, gravitating towards the Pan-Africanist position, you have to wait. And politically, the government of Nana Addo has shot itself in the foot. Because this thing has gone viral worldwide, in terms of what has happened. And all kinds of reasonings are being given for this action. Sometimes you get yourself in a rut and you have to decide which is the lesser of two evils. We didn't do our due diligence properly with these series coming. How do we mitigate it? Did they call?
I'm still asking the question. Due diligence about what?
About the fact that
you have a partisan political interest.
Yes.
Therefore, you are precluded from having a foundation that can host Africans to speak about Africa?
No, but in fairness, notwithstanding whether the statement, and I don't believe the statement, I've listened to what Lumumba's PLO said, at least in his speech, and he didn't make reference to that. So unless they are attributing the speech to him somewhere else, I go with the fact that I have not heard it anywhere apart from social media.
That's right.
And social media is not going to be the basis for which I will take it that he ever said that statement. But for me, at least there is a need for a transparency as to what, in effect, if they have been used, the security is entitled to know. They are not entitled to stop it, but we are entitled to know.
Please, if any one of you watching or listening is aware of a state event that replaced that event, please share the message with us.
Yes.
Yeah, information with us.
So for me, they are entitled to know because I'm hoping that it's not true.
The same venue.
Yes, that's what he said. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what the official statement said. There was going to be a state event at that same venue.
Your invitation was for somebody to tell you of any state event during the time, not at the place.
No, at the same venue.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah.
So for me, I'm clear that there would have been some concern as to if you are going to launch your political career. One, at least national security should have been aware. And two, all the speakers should have been known this is what we are being asked to come and do. None of the speakers was going to talk about his political career. I doubt. They would have talked about Pan-Africanism. The only person you could have said may have been a bit political may have been Peter Obi, because he's a politician in that regard. But he wasn't coming, as far as I know, and haven't listened to him that he was coming. Julius Malema was never in town, so he didn't even attend. So, if talking about shooting oneself in the foot, this is an own goal by the security agents and the government of Nana Addo.
Interesting.
And with their with the history they have, they should not have cancelled. And even if it is true, all the things we are saying are true, I go with your initial question. Actually, when you look at freedom of speech and the way somebody wants to launch his political career, let the speakers take him on and be upset after the event.
Yeah, but
you understand? But if he has gone through all the procedures and nobody would necessarily ask some of these speakers to give their speech in advance, how would they know what Cheddar was going to say?
So one of the significant persons who was also invited formally to this program, a statesman, says that they encouraged him to. He says that this is the clarity he brings. National security knew ahead of the event the man behind the mask, and that no state event took place as was alleged that there was a state event that was supposed to take place. No state event took place. Franklin Kujo, president of Imani Africa, says the president, in his Constitution Day speech, promised to uphold individual liberties and guarantee freedom of assembly and association. Less than 5 hours after his speech, his office strangely torpedoed a licensed public event a group of law-abiding citizens had put together, leaving thousands stranded as heavily armed security forces barred entry to the event. Martin Pebu, who is a private legal practitioner, says everybody involved should be held responsible because this is the breach of the organizers' Article 21 right. Article 21 of the Constitution guarantees freedom of speech, including freedom of assembly. So once the place is booked, you can't cancel it at that last hour. It was just too late to cancel it. Let's now also share some other views being sent in on this particular topic. Vine Maxwell says, the irresponsible cancellation of Pan-African Convention by MPP-led government is an act of cowardice, and this government is trying everything to silence divergent views of the people using brute force and state power. Kobe Jones says, Bento does not see flamboyance in those wasting our public purse, but a private guy using his own resources to market himself. Theophilus Amasa It says Shedder must do his things with clarity, truth and integrity, and consciousness. It was wrong to appoint a complete foreigner as a spokesperson. Ghana is a nation of many jokers. Okay, so he's referring to the spokesperson for the new force who was arrested and subsequently deported by the states. Samson says, but which state event was scheduled for the Black Star Square? And the managers of the venue or state protocol didn't know this ahead of time? Let's end this embarrassment and joke as a country. Then this one from Mark in the USA says, foreigners are not allowed to partake in our politics. Well, they pay for your elections. Until recently, that they decided not to pay for your elections. They pay for you to organize the election. The invitation of the 4 Pan-Africanists for Nana Kwame Bediako to launch his political career was wrong. That aside, state security should be blamed for not revealing the man behind the mask. Even me, living in the US, had intel that the man behind the mask was Freedom Jacob Caesar. Kandapa. All right, thanks for that. And then, okay. Someone is asking, can't Bediako simply sue? Is there truly a chief of staff at the presidency? That's many of the questions coming in. I'll take just about 2 more and then we hear Professor Ajmandia briefly because she has to make an input. It says, what is this talk about hiding? Is partisan politics not about hiding behind something, for example, giving money to the electorate to influence them by hiding behind the reason of TNT? In any event, the reference persons are available to anybody to invite for a forum. We should rather not hide behind things. Good morning. That's from Ken. African, as pursued by Nkrumah, selected like-minded individuals and helped their political cause to enhance the Pan-African story. That's from Ernest. All right, thanks for all of those messages. Prof, very quick comments before we close the chapter on this subject.
Well, I think in reference to my good friend Kofi's points about the event, it's important to know that young people are yearning for something different. In Ghana in particular, Africa too. And we should just find a way to encourage young people to come forward. The political systems in African countries, as you well know, most of the countries, are not supportive of progress. Look, this conversation, we're not getting into the character of the individual involved. That's why I didn't go there. I'm personally disturbed by certain pronouncements of Bediako and how he presents himself and all that. But the idea is refreshing. In fact, I listened to his interview, I think on Joy's Showtime, a morning show or something like that. He's the first candidate who's talking about what? The over-centralization of development in Accra and Tema, that we need to have different development poles in the country. That was important. That was refreshing. So anyway, all I'm saying is that for whatever it is, we need new ideas. We need fresh blood in our political system because the current crop of politicians, the professional politicians we have, are not helping us.
All right. Kweku Enchibuesiako is asking, was Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's Pan-Africanist agenda and activism not about, partly, you can say, his personal political ambition in Ghana? Right. Thanks for all of your messages. They lied using state apparatus and authority, yet no heads are likely to roll. The presidency lacks credibility. And this is from Note. We take a break. We'll be right back to check if you are actually going to have your lights on throughout the year after you had some, rude Dumsor of sorts in the course of the week. We owe so much to those who are supplying us the electricity. We have a debt of $19.3 million US. We made an initial payment through the GMPC of $3 million. And then we made a recent payment of $10 million. We have paid a total of $13 million US. We have a debt remaining of $6.3 million. Will the power stay on? Should there be VAT on your electricity? Professor Stephen Adai says no. Our new set of guests joining us will help us with the expertise to appreciate these matters. Thank you to Professor Bafwa Ajmendia and for our other guests who are taking leave of us now. Thank you very much. We'll be right back.
A huge amount of money, 3 consecutive times.
We have to off all our gas and about 5 or 10 then to come back again.
What I mean, why? What did we do? Was it wrong for us giving you the power to govern over us?
We cannot build as a government and we still want to stay in power. Oh, Ghana, what have we done wrong?
I will not call this Dumsor, but when it carries on consistently, then we see that things are going the way Dumsor is, then I will say yes, there is Dumsor. But as at now, I cannot say we are in Dumsor.
If they said it's not Dumsor, then they have to announce so that we will be aware. It is only the evenings that markets boom. So in the evening when we are selling and there is no light and this place is dark, you have to pack and go. Because even in the daytime, the thieves are worrying us. So how much more in the evening when you are in the dark? It is worse. At least if there is a power shortage or there is a fault somewhere, they should alert us so that we will know that this is what is going on. So we will prepare for it. But it shouldn't be like we are there, then they will off the lights a whole day.
Me wabra na highlight some de anya kra hwe mitire ho. Miti me ka say me koye me ya koye salon for see my light off.
The electricity issue here in Abra is heartbreaking. Have been unable to visit the saloon because of the power outages. As I speak to you now, I'm sweating badly because of the heat. It's been very distressing.
Because light na no mudi ye adwuma ho. Edu anwumre so ne e ba beda so no ma say adwum light. Teachers are handed the light off na.
It's been affecting some of our household equipment and stuff at home, but I think it's something that has become something of a norm, which shouldn't be the case, but it's sort of a norm right now. Of course, preferably would want things to be improved. If we could get a stable lighting condition throughout, why not? It would always enrich the economy, it would always make things better. So
today, Dumsor, they are kicking it like a football. Why? Because he wants to kick it over the 7th January 2025 line and hand the trouble over to somebody else. And yet we resolved it before they came into office. Today they put value added tax on electricity bills and COVID levy, NHIL levy, Get Fund levy, all on electricity bills. And so that is going to send the cost of your electricity bills up. Already there was a 29% increase, there was a 19% increase. Then they tried to fool us with a 4% decrease. And now it's going up again, astronomically.
Right. A Newsfile is brought to you by the candid sponsorship of Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner, MTN, everywhere you go. Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. Robert & Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care service provider for 31 years. Europlus, producers of quality PVC and HDPE PE pipes and water tank. Where Duroplast goes, water flows. DBS Industries, roofing, Papa Fie. My Way Insurance, dial *165# on MTN to join My Way today. Syntex tanks is strong, it's tough. Flamingo Paint, simply superior. Snake Seed, as a self-employed enrollment drive. You can participate in it. It's your future, so own it. Hubtel is everything you. And thanks also to Doormasters. My guest for this segment, Ben Boakye is Executive Director, Africa Center for Energy Policy, ACEP. Kofi Bentel is still with us. Andrew Kofi Ejapamesa is Deputy Minister of Energy. Edward Abambere Bauer is member, Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament. He's MP for Bongo. Once again, thanks to Alex Segbefia and Andy Kwame, Pierre Kubi, and Professor Ajiman Bafo Ajimandria, who were with us earlier. So let me go straight to Ben Boakye, Executive Director, African Center for Energy Policy. What's the problem with our energy, our electricity? What's the problem with it?
Thanks for having me. This is a big one, but I mean, if we are referring to what happened last week, it essentially was a curtailment of supply of gas from the Western Corridor to the east, where we have significant, power plants, located. So we didn't have gas coming in to be able to power the power plant, and that was because WAPCO, had to shut down the valves because we owed them. So that's what actually happened. I think on the 9th, they did that, and it didn't come out of a vacuum. This alarm had been sounded a number of times for the payments to be made, and the regular payment, a structure established for that. I remember in December they alerted government that they were giving us up to the 8th of January to pay the money outstanding, failing which they would shut down, the valve. And true to their word, they did it because they had informed us that they were going to cut supply if we did not do that. And for me, I don't know why we wait for that to happen, because if you look at the power sector and the payments that we have to pay, I mean, it's the least of it. It's not as huge as what we have to pay IPPs or the even Greco or any other player in the sector. Their entire payment will be a maximum of $7 million a month, usually around 4 or 5 million, when we are not flowing up to 110 or 115 SCAF, per day. So, and the way the power sector is structured, if we don't have the gas flowing, what it means is that you're not having the power plants also working. And the power plants, if they don't work because gas did not flow, you're still going to have to pay them because you have take-or-pay agreement. You're still going to have to pay for the gas because you have take-or-pay agreement. So the ramification for not having the gas flowing is quite wide, and you would expect that we are cautious of how we get that piece of the value chain always active and working, whilst we manage the rest of the challenges. I do appreciate that the challenges are in multiple folds across the entire spectrum of the power sector. So that is what actually happened.
Right. So government, we've been told about the debt as you referred to, and so far we've been able to settle some, is it $13 million? We have up to $6.3 million remaining to pay. Is that it? Once we make that payment, then the coast is clear. We shouldn't expect any problems going forward?
It's a going concern. I mean, we always are piling up. Every month comes with its own bill of about $7 million. So if you add, I think up to December, the total was about 24 million. And from what I understand, the Ministry of Finance has paid 10 million, and GMPC has also paid $2 million. So 12 million of that has been paid. So that means we still have half of the bill outstanding. And whilst we speak,
GMPC has paid $3 million.
Maybe there's an additional 1 million, but the evidence I have is $2 million.
Okay.
On the 10th, they paid $2 million, and then Ministry of Finance on the 12th paid $10 million. So that brings it to 12 million, unless they paid another $1 million. So that's what it is. So we are still accumulating the debt as gas flows. So how we sustainably address that liquidity challenge is, for me, the bigger question on the table, so that it's not recurrent. Because they did that, I think October or November. They shut it down after prompting GMPC and government, and then they've done it again. And my suspicion is that because of the liquidity challenges across the board, if you want to get your money and you know that the only language government understands is shutting the valves, we would expect more of that if we don't get.
So from where you sit, this is not a wisdom problem, it is a cash problem.
It is a cash problem. It's a cash problem that has been sustained by a problem, diagnosis that we had as far back as 2014, where we talked that the power sector was suffering from three things. We were suffering from managerial problems, we were suffering from technical problems, and we also had liquidity challenges. So these problems haven't gone away, and all of them work together to bring us to where we are today, where the budget essentially being sacrificed, to keep the lights on. And that for me is unfair to the Ghanaian people that require significant investment. I'm sure Honorable Mesa would have loved to have his constituency getting more money, but that money is being used to pay electricity bill. All right, it's being used to sustain the light, which for me is really unfair to the Ghanaian people. We need to get this power sector working as business, all right, where the generators get their money because power has been generated. The transmitter gets his money because power has been transmitted. And the distributor also make money because they are working to distribute electricity.
Do I hear you say that we are not paying the price we are supposed to pay for electricity, and that is the problem?
Far from it. I think it's really the inefficiencies in the power sector. When we buy power from the generators, up to 30% or more is gone for commercial and technical losses. So what that means is that you can't even get money for it, all right? And what you even are able to bill, we can't collect as much. So cumulatively, what we are able to get at the last mile is about 30% of the cost of the value chain. So that 70% has to come from somewhere. And we train the data, the more you increase the tariff and bill, the very few faithful ones, they also decide to skip and exit the grid. So illicit trade of power is growing by the day, because we think that tariff is the solution and we keep adjusting it. And that's what we've done over 100% in just a single year. And that hasn't transformed the cash or the liquidity challenges that we have.
We went into Dumsor because we had inadequate capacity. Now we understand we have excess capacity. It's just that we are unable to pay for it. So is Dumsor properly, so to speak, potential in the future?
I think what happened in 2012, 2013 was much more complicated than how we sometimes think that there was no generation and therefore we went into challenges. It was similar management problems that we are seeing today that brought us where we are. And I recall clearly, because I was in the space, what led to the other. It started with, gas supply curtailment. And what we did at the time was just to turn on the turbines at Takusumbo, and we turned on the turbines in Bui just to be able to meet the demand. Before we knew it, the dam had run out of water. And also some of the power plant had not been maintained, the TICOs and the TACOs that were there, because we're running them on heavy fuel oils and diesel. They couldn't go to the scheduled maintenance because we're just doing the politics with it. Right? And it's the same thing we are doing today. Right? What we are supposed to do is to make sure that plants go on the schedule maintenance, they are working as they should, and we are not stressing them. If you have to shed the load. Don't keep plant working more than it's supposed to deliver. All right. So that scenario is playing out. And if we don't watch it in various segments of the value chain, we could get into trouble. And today, you look at the state of Gridco, it's not sitting pretty well because it is not doing the maintenance that it's supposed to do. So you have many localized outages because the grid is not holding up. And, Akosombo is also being the backbone. Now, one of the turbines is being fitted, worked on. We can hope that the others can also sustain the pressure. If you have problems with gas supply and WAPCO keeps turning off the power, the liquidity situation also worsened, and that put more pressure on government to raise money to be able to buy liquid fuel. So all of these things can crystallize into a bigger problem. That
so you will not hesitate in voting for the tax on electricity, right?
Not really. I think I don't have a problem with VAT on electricity, but you have to analyze it from a systems perspective and where we are. And I think it is not the right time to do that because we have a problem where people are stealing power. We don't have a solution to it. And the more you increase the burden, the tendency for them to more people to steal power is really high. All right, we don't have the systems to be able to address the leakages that are happening everywhere in the country, and just adding another layer of tax is not going to. I mean, government has been taking VAT from businesses. They hardly realize that money because once it gets into ECG's hands, and they can collect much, they can pay the IPPs, they can pay transmission, they can pay the state agencies like VRA and BUI. I mean, there is no money. So that additional tax on consumers, who are about 35% of the total consuming populace, I don't think is going to shift anything. What we need to focus on is making sure that those who are not paying pay. We are able to account for the power that is generated. We have the systems to do that. And once we be able to clean up that space and being able to optimize the tariff so that it is much more less burdensome on the people, then you can then go into these kinds of things to see how do we generate more revenue. Otherwise, you only have a few credible consumers who are always taking the bullet. They're always taking the higher tariffs on themselves, and that wouldn't change anything at this point.
Thank you very much, Ben. Edward Bauer, you are with the Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament. Of course, you have also been in this area when the NDC was in government. What do you find to be the problem, and how do we get out of it? Hello, Edward. Please unmute your mic.
Yes, thank you very much, Samson, for the opportunity. I said that I'm up north, and the weather has taken a toll on my voice. So, but I hope it is audible enough for a discussion.
It is, please.
Look, I think that Ben Boakye captures a greater part of the issue, and the issue basically is the fact that we simply do not have, the whole system is not liquid. And it's because of the fact there's so much wastage. I just want to make a bit of a correction, or maybe not correction, but just a disagreement with Ben when he talks about the problems between 2012 and 2016, or maybe 2014 and 2016. It is true that even after the first crisis that we got, that was under the Kufuor government, even before 2009, it was very clear that yes, we had financial issues within the sector, we have managerial issues. We also have technical issues, and particularly on the basis of adequate generation. So we had these things. And so it was very clear as a country, anybody who was a player in that sector knew that these problems needed to be solved. And I think that one of the areas that was solved was the fact that government then decided to add enough generation to to the grid. And that is an issue we can talk about later. But there was yet also another thing, the financial issue. The financial issue was that over the period, because of the legacy debt that we had, that had been accumulated through the years, we came to the conclusion that, look, there must be a way of ring-fencing this particular debt and finding a way of retiring them. Whilst doing that, we should be able to also see how we can ensure that the system going forward is very efficient enough not to accumulate debt. And that's why, if you recall the Boache Jaco's vetting, he had indicated that if you look at the total amount of debt that was within the sector, it was about $2.4 billion. So then the issue of ESLA came in, and the then government had a feeling that, look, in 5 years, based on the rate that had been put on the Energy Sector Levy Act to get those monies, in 5 years, we should be able to retire the legacy debt whilst ensuring that we have the efficiencies within the sector going on. You and I know that change of government. The government even came and they increased, because there was a sunset clause for that act, increased it to 10 years, and then issued a bond for 10 years, a 10-year bond of totaling about 10 billion that was supposed to be used in retiring this debt. You and I know that that didn't happen. The financial situation has become bad. Why is it bad? And what happened a few weeks ago is just a symptom, and just as Ben said, it's the lowest part of the problem that we have, because that is just a small amount of money. Because if you have a situation where the ECG buys power and cannot account for the power, definitely they cannot pay all the people up north, like in terms of the value chain going up, because they don't have the money, they can't account for the power they bought, and therefore they have a problem. I'll give you just a scenario to see. Based on documents that were given to the Mines and Energy Committee, and for that matter, Parliament, by ECG in March 2023, I just give you just a few things. If you look at the technical and commercial losses in terms of money value, and the trend, you see the trend is so disturbing. You see that in 2017, for example, you had the total loss as at the end of 2017 was 541,609,699. In 2018, it came to almost about 1.5 billion. In 2019, it was around 700 million. In 2020, it became about 2.2 billion. In 2021, it was about 2.3 billion. And in 2022, it was about 2.6 billion. And these are monies that ECG simply cannot account for after they have bought the power. So if they cannot make it, what that means is that they cannot pay all the other players up north. But let me tell you something. These particular problems that we're having, whether it is shortage of a shortfall in capacity payments, whether it is fuel payment, these are all things that are factored into the end user tariff. So Samson, myself and you, if I go to buy power today, per our arrangement, I pay because fuel is a pass-through cost, if you look at the calculation. So it means I have already paid for the fuel that is supposed to be used in generating the power. And so government should be able to or maybe the utility, ECG, should be able to pay for that. Because when I pay, they are able to do that. How come that they cannot do it? It's because ECG cannot account for this particular power that is being distributed. So you see that in all the sector, in all the value chain, he used the word gridco. He gave gridco as an example. As of 31st December last year, 2023, gridco had invoiced ECG to a tune of about 1.4 billion as the amount of money they needed to pay. ECG needed to pay gridco. ECG could only honor 23% of that particular bill. So what it means is that about 77% of that bill simply, 77% of that bill simply was not paid to gridco. So gridco cannot have an investment they've been done. They cannot improve on their operations. There are a lot of things that cannot be done. You come to BUI, and I'm using just government sector before I come to the IPPs. So you look at the BUI, because of the fact that BUI has to pay back the debts that we took from, in terms of the Sino-Hydro deal, to construct the dam. They invoice ECG on in dollar denomination, because that's how they are able to get the money to be able to pay, even though you and I know that they are even unable to do it. Sometimes Ministry of Finance has to intervene to do the payments. If you look at BUI, for the whole year, they could only honor 18% of the total bill that was sent to ECG. Now, what business can run on situations like that? In fact, last 2 months, and that's November, December, we had to, even in terms of payment of their workers, had to go on for an overdraft to even pay workers. That's how bad the situation is. So it is a liquidity problem. We've not been able to manage the place very well.
All right.
We have not. Look, and just a last one before you make. You see, again, sometimes there's serious accountability we have to look, because the moment ECG has a problem, it affects everybody. A typical example, and that's a question of accountability and transparency. You had the managing director of ECG announce to the whole world that, look, I was embarking on debt collection program, and that the target was to get about 7 billion from customers who are defaulted and what have you. At the end of the exercise, they were able to declare 5.31 billion Ghana cedis. The question you ask yourself, what did they use the money for? Because the cash waterfall mechanism that was created to ensure that all the players, so in this cash waterfall mechanism, it's just a pot that all the monies are put in, and then there's a predetermined formula where they say this money is put here. So fuel, fuel suppliers take your share. This, and they give them in terms of proportions. And normally there's a scale for that, and it's predetermined by all the players.
All right.
How come that mechanism has stopped? And so it is a financial problem. It is a problem to a very large extent that has been brought onto ourselves. We would have solved this problem.
Thank you. Let me bring the minister on now. Ejapa Mensah, thank you very much once again. And in the course of the week, we were all so very worried. For example, I get up in the morning, I get to my office, and suddenly the lights have gone off. And for the whole day, I don't have light. I didn't plan to buy diesel, and I have to do all of that. And then I have to plan the next day, how will life be like? And you are hearing from all over the places, people are talking about how their lights, have gone off. Then you came with the assurance that it is over. Is it really over?
Well, let me say good afternoon or it's still morning to our listeners and viewers, and of course, my co-panelists. I'm sure that when Ben was articulating the issues relative to what happened on the 9th and some hours of the 10th, it was quite clear that there was an issue with respect to gas transportation from the west to the east, which then led to WAPCO curtailing their services to GNPC. That problem was resolved on the evening of the 10th. And so as we speak, we do not have any curtailment in gas transportation from the west to the east. And so the plants are all running at full capacity. And as far as I know, from our systems control center, there's been no outage of electricity or, if you like, deficit in generation from the 13th, on the 12th, and even on the 11th. And so if
except that prior to that, people had, experienced intermittent outages, but I'm not sure if we can attribute that to what happened.
So that's why I'm coming there. Indeed, and in fact, WAPCO reduced the volume of transportation on the 2nd. And so what we did was to reduce our export volumes to make up for the shortfall in local generation demand.
All right.
Okay. And so, like I was saying, making reference to what Ben said, probably some grid-related issues may account for the outages that people encountered in their homes during the period. Okay, but when it comes to the issue of generation itself per se, the information that I have is that apart from the night of the 9th and some hours into the 10th, where we had up to 700 or so megawatts of power taken off. And so we had to cut our export to reduce that 700 to about 510. We haven't had any deficit in generation in the domestic market from the night of the 12th to date, or if you like, the night of the 10th to date. Hello?
Yes, I'm listening to you. To you.
So that's the thing. And right. Indeed, you're right. And Ben to a large extent is right when it comes to the issue of the curtailment. Timing really was an issue for us. Okay. And so I personally had discussions with the Chief Executive of WAPCO to grant us some space as we work with Ministry of Finance to procure approvals to pay up the deficit that ECG have been able to make available to GMPC to pay. So, of course, I mean, she also had to go through her own internal approval processes, and so that could not be granted. And so they took off the power, the services on the night of the 9th.
Right.
And by the 10th PM, it had been restored.
Yeah.
So what we are supposed to do going forward, and for which I can assure our listeners that this eventuality relative to payment of WAPCO services will not recur, is because in August, when we did a review of the cash waterfall mechanism, we segregated it into 2 tiers. Tier 1 to deal with the foreign IPP payments, for which a negotiated 43 million fixed sum had been agreed between the IPPs and ECG. So on a monthly basis since August, ECG has been paying the IPPs their due, and there's no delay, if you like, with respect to that. They've been current on that. The debt that had accumulated prior to the August start date of the implementation of the new cash waterfall mechanism is what has been ring-fenced by the Ministry of Finance, and some negotiations have been going on with IPPs to pay it over a period of time. Okay. As of end of December, we have concluded discussions with about 4 IPPs, and the 2 that is outstanding, we are still engaging to conclude negotiations on that. So following this issue with WAPCO, what the ministry and the sector players have agreed is to move the WAPCO fee from tier 2, okay, to tier 1 to assure constant payment of that fee, so that whatever comes in the pot then remaining is then allocated to the rest of the SOEs and local. So that's what we've done to ensure that, as Ben rightfully indicated, we don't have to joke with the fuel transportation component because of the take-or-pay obligations that we have on the gas front.
So you are repeating the assurance that despite the difficult economic circumstances we find ourselves, despite the bit of delay that has happened with the monies we expect from the IMF, the $6.3 million that we owe, we will certainly take care of it, and we will not come to Dumsor.
I don't know why you're relating the payment of the gas transportation services to the difficult economic circumstances, because in spite of the difficult economic circumstances that have bedeviled this country over the past 3 years, the lights have largely been on. What it means is that the government has prioritized energy and has invested, and rightfully so, to the detriment of some sectors of the budget and all that. Okay.
All right.
So yes, that assurance is given. And to correct a point that Ben made, GMPC actually paid $3 million in December, I believe on the 29th. Okay. And then subsequently $2 million on January 10th. And the Ministry of Finance, $10 million went to the players yesterday. So in total, some $15 million has been paid. And as far as I know, the December bill is not due yet. Okay, and so that cannot be factored as part of the obligation. The obligation as of end November, which was due by end December, was 19.3 million, of which 15 has, as of today, been paid, leaving an outstanding of, I believe, 4 million, which we are working to pay sometime next week, because there's been email correspondence between us with respect to how we pay that money. And going forward, the December invoice, because of the decision that we've taken to add it to the tier 1 payments, will be fully paid by ECG and GMPC, because they also sell part of that gas that is transported to non-power consumers, for which they receive payments that they are then able to put together with what ECG has to pay them to pay fully for the gas.
Thank you very much, Ejapa Mesa. And Kofi Bentil, forgive us, but we'll give you just a minute's comment as our time is up. Yes, Kofi.
Right. So we have just a minute. What people used to ask me is Dumsor coming back? And then recently they asked me, has Dumsor come back? What I explained to them is that not all Dumsor is the same. There is Dumsor Tico, and then there is Dumsor Bus. And Dumsor can rise to the level of a double-decker bus. And I explained to them, trying to make sense of it, because it's a very serious matter, that ultimately these are finance decisions. These decisions are made in the Ministry of Finance, and they affect the energy people. So I have a lot of sympathy for Ejapamesa and co. All right, and we don't have time to go into it, but I think better finance decisions must be made. Things like VAT on electricity are retrograde. Now, the sad part is that what we've had is Dumsor. Everybody should be clear about it. Dumsor is a finance issue. The government failed to act timeously. The reasons are there, but that's what happened. It is Dumsor. But this is Dumsor Tico. It is not the kind of Dumsor we had under this government, which totally uplifts economy. So please, I can understand, but we don't have the time. We should just avoid a situation where this Dumsor Tico becomes a Dumsor bus and becomes a Dumsor double-decker bus. And it is a finance issue.
I can assure you that we're going to get there.
All right. He's repeating the assurance that we will not get there. Thank you very much, Ejapamesa. Let's hope that this assurance is kept. And thank you all, our guests. Thank you, Ben Boache. Thank you, Edward Bauer. And also to you, Kofi Bentel. And, you have to join Nathaniel Atto on the Joy Sports link on Joy FM, 99.7 FM. As he brings us a special AFCON preview with Ghana legend Samuel Osei Kufuor and some seasoned pundits. And I suppose those pundits will definitely include the Journalist of the Year swag winner. That is Gary Al Smith. So join them. What are your expectations as Ghana faces Cape Verde tomorrow? Don't miss it. Thank you very much. And my favorite show, The Law. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. Sunday, we are educating you on the ECOWAS courts. They are presently in Ghana. Before, not long ago, the court came to Ghana to sit, even though the seat of the court is in Abuja, Nigeria. Right? And I'll be dealing with, the right people helping us to educate you on how you can actually take a case to the ECOWAS court. Marie Sain is Registrar, Judicial Records, Archives and Publications at the ECOWAS court. And Dr. Chris Yenevi is the Executive Assistant to the President of the ECOWAS court. The President is a Ghanaian, Justice Edward Asante. I'm Samson, Lardy, Anyenini. Thank you very much for company for our very first edition of Newsfile for 2024. Have a good afternoon.